and welcome to Meticulous Moments. My name is Juanita Kapp. You can reach me at meticulousmacarons@gmail.com or find me on LinkedIn. Since the COVID-19 pandemic hit the globe, I've had the wonderful privilege to meet a wide array of fantastic individuals. These individuals have truly touched my life in so many positive ways. Amongst this group of people, there are authors, public speakers, life coaches, poets, leaders, and visionaries. They are the unsung heroes of our time. Therefore, I decided to start the Meticulous Moments movement out of a sense of my gratitude. It is my way of giving back to the community. Let us share and reshare their stories in an effort to build a better society. This evening we are joined by the lovely and amazing Mandy Robinson. A little bit more about Mandy. She's a Canadian Provincial Award recipient, 2015 Leading Women Building Communities Recognition Program, 2021 Multiple Sclerosis Volunteer Award recipient, a Distinguished Toastmaster. 2015, she was crowned first female ambassadorial town crier in Cobourg, Ontario, Canada. She's a women's empowerment coach. She's a professional inspirational speaker. She's an accomplished professional speechwriter, a legacy ghostwriter, an editor, a professional photographer, featured front cover Canadian National Magazine. She's a professional published poet, creating custom poems for events and ceremonies. She's a visual storyteller, an artist, a Shakespearean actress, a portrait sketch artist, a facilitator for events, and a master of ceremonies. Let's welcome Mandy Robinson. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Meticulous Moments. This evening we are joined by the fabulous Mandy Robinson. Good evening, Mandy.
Good evening. Thank you for having me here, and hi to everyone, whoever's watching out there somewhere on the planet. How are you, Anita?
I'm doing so well. Thank you, Mandy. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. We are very, very fortunate to have you with us, and we would like you to introduce yourself to the audience for those who don't know you yet.
Absolutely. So my name is Mandy Robinson. I am British born, you can probably tell that by the accent, and I live on the North Shore of Lake Ontario in the province of Ontario in Canada. So Lake Ontario divides the US from Canada. That gives people a little bit of bearings, I like to say, on where I live. I'm an hour and a half west of Toronto, and I'm an hour and a half east of Kingston. And our nation's capital is 4.5 hours drive east and north up in Ottawa. So who am I? I am the blessed mother of 3 amazing daughters, skills, talented. One speaks 8 languages fluently. 3 of those are Arabic. One speaks 5, one speaks 3. I've got 6, but I haven't used them, so I'm not fluent. But once I get with people, then I become fluent. So they have talents. They're, the one, she's at the Canadian Embassy in Cairo, Egypt, teaches languages and music and interprets for them. The other one is a graphic designer at Trent University up here for their program. And my youngest has my incredible 13-year-old grandson. He just turned 13, and he's already winning awards for the soul in here that looks out at his peers and tries to stop bullying in his community. I've got goosebumps. What else do I do? I'm a ballroom Latin dancer, and things are just opening up again. So I'm just starting to getting back into dancing. So excited. I'm a photographer, a poet. The Northumberland Players has reopened, so I'm back into the acting. I'm a Shakespeare actress. I was reading Shakespeare and Chaucer, those type of people. So I love that. I wear many hats, many enjoyments. We're going to get into it in the interview, but that's just
wonderful.
A little.
I love that. I love that. I would love to see videos of you dancing the night away.
Okay.
So please share those with me when you can.
Yes, I can. I recently doing what was I doing? I was doing a jive. With one of
lovely. That's
and
wonderful.
he's amazing. Oh, when you've got the right man leading you,
Yeah.
you just feel as though you're being carried around the dance floor. It's my passion. My parents were ballroom Latin dance champions in the army back in their day. And my sister still has all my mother's ball gowns kept safely in England. So it's in my blood.
It's in your blood, I agree. Mandy, it's clear that you wear many hats. You are a very talented woman indeed. Would you care to elaborate on the following roles? I think this will just assist the audience to get a well-rounded view of your focus and your accomplishments. So I made a list and I'm going to call out these attributes of yours. And if you can just explain it to the audience. So first off, I wrote here that you are an author.
Yes, a 6 times best-selling author, actually.
Ooh, I've got fantastic.
Here. I'll just highlight a few of them.
Yeah.
The first one is my own. So this is Catalyst Poetry. So that is beautiful. 52 photographs and 52 poems, which is one for every week of the year. And I didn't make it that way, but when it went to the publisher, that's how it turned out. So I have a show on a Wednesday evening at 8:45 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I read the poem, highlight the photograph, and then we go into an inspirational discussion on what the poem means and how it applies to life. Basically, it is about my life's experiences, or some of them, and it covers every range of human emotion and event that people have gone through, from death to love to joy to sadness to success to celebration. That's who I'm about, because I love to inspire, and that's how that book came about.
I love that cover.
Thank you. That's one. And then I'm just going to grab this one. Now, these that I'm going to show you now, actually, no, I'll show you the other one. So I'm also in this anthology, because I am a professional poet as well. So one of my poems was published in here. It's called The Departing Day. And this book, actually, based on my platform, which is violence and sexual abuse against women, I'm an advocate against that.
Wonderful.
Thank you. Yeah. I created a poem called The Empowerment Group. It's in this anthology. Yeah. And this anthology is in the offices of counselors in the women's shelters here in my community, because it's so inspiring. So that's another one. We're getting through. Now, this one, I co-authored a book with, you may know these names. If you don't, it doesn't matter, but these are world famous names. So Joe Vitale from The Secret, Bob Proctor from The Secret, Dr. John DeMartini, Sharon Lecter, Douglas Vermeeren, Raymond Aaron from The Secret, and Valen Vergara, and Jim Cathcart. So again, we're going to get into one of my other topics, but I was asked to write a chapter on the best advice for speakers.
Amazing.
And since I teach and coach, we'll get into that. But anyway, so just basically, I won't read you. I'll just highlight some of it. Heartfelt public speaking for me is defining my purpose before delivering a speech. Whether my audience is 1 or 1,000, I pray that the message will impact and make a difference in the life of just one person. Then I relax into being present in each moment as I utilize the whole stage. This allows me to connect with each member of the audience by making eye contact with not only the people in front of me, but with people way off in the background at selected points throughout the audience. My goal is to have every member of the audience feel appreciated for being there. Then I suggest setting up your pauses, perhaps by asking a question, allowing the audience to digest what your main point is in that moment. Be real, smile often, be passionate. And then a little bit here, as a storyteller, I become the visual, utilizing every aspect of body language to not only engage my audience, but to maintain their connection to my message. And I leave the audience feeling empowered. So that, to be with these world famous names in this book is priceless. It's not, it's about the titles. These are people in their own rights, right? So this is the next one. This is called The Magnetic Entrepreneur, and it's entitled The Blessings of COVID.
Oh,
now,
interesting.
This guy is Robert J. Moore. He is also a millionaire out of Toronto, does a lot for charity. And he's been reaching out to me for a couple of years to be in one of his books. And this was the perfect opportunity because the pandemic that we've just gone through, mostly negative, and he wanted us to focus on blessings. So I had the perfect chapter.
Wow.
It's called The Mouse and the Princess. And this is how I made a little girl's dream come true. And I won't get into the whole chapter because there's a whole story behind it. But after we'd had this unique, special, sacred experience, myself as the town crier, her mother, three-year-old little girl, her mother took a photograph of me crouching down and just engaging the little girl, and she's in red and white, the same colors as I was in. And it was a chance meeting. It was God ordained. It was meant to happen. There was nobody else around because it was the pandemic. And after I'd done what I did to make this little girl happy, her mom later sent me a letter. And this is what she said. We had to move quickly from Toronto because our home was no longer a safe place to be. Oh, she's 4. Mouse is 4 years old. During this turbulent time, she had lost her grandparents, who were no longer safe for her to be in contact with. The playgrounds were closed. Mouse hadn't seen anybody else in months but her parents. Mouse, right, okay. Life wasn't feeling comfortable for my poor little girl, but we decided to make the best of life and went for an evening walk. I wanted to show her that this new town was magical and there was real beauty and security here for her, though her life had changed so much. We walked onto the pier. I took pictures of my small town girl, and that's what her shirt said, small town girl.
Lovely.
The photograph went viral and it was entitled, and it wasn't I didn't send it out there, somebody else did.
Yeah.
And they entitled it Small Town Girl Meets Force of Nature. Listen to what she says. I've got goosebumps all over me every time I read this. We walked onto the pier and I took pictures of my small town girl who was still missing the wonder of the city of Toronto that she was born in. And then, as if my heart had willed you into existence, there was a princess in the most lovely dress I had ever seen. Mouse was in awe. I took a photo. You two talked. No, connected. In that moment, life was wonderful, surprising, safe, kind and gentle again. My child inflated again. Mouse had come home, covered in goosebumps. Thank you, Mandy. I have no words for how much you mean to us. Try not to cry at this. In a world where we lack family, you have so quickly become out. So that was that was a blessing of COVID, making a difference for this little girl. So that was another one. And then I've just got one more here. I don't have them all, but anyway, so this is Flashpoint, Your Turnaround Story. And you know Austin J. Haynes, this is his first book. And he reached out to me for chapter 3 in this book. These are all bestsellers, by the way. Now, this is called Why Do You Have a Rifle? And it's one of the experiences of me escaping a 30-year domestic abuse marriage. So again, not getting into the whole chapter, but I just had this horrendous experience. And I'll just read a couple of paragraphs. Here, there were no heroes, no encores. Here was only silence. Relentless winds of time, ice storms of emotion, treacherous, unmapped pathways that dared me to set foot upon them. The pattern was made, the mold was cast. And then I included one of my poems. So I've broken away at this point. I've fled for my life with my youngest daughter, and we end up in a women's shelter.
Yeah.
After fleeing from the police station, my daughter and I went to a women's shelter and put in a survivor group. I would be taught that I had the right to be free and that I deserved to be happy. This is all a part of my advocacy. 15 weeks in, I would be inspired to write a poem about the essence of this composite body of soul sisters. And I showed you the empowerment group in the departing day. And that's printed by the Poetry Institute of Canada. And then I'm just going to go right to the end. In this group, in this shelter, I had been told that I should be a Toastmaster. I said, well, what's a Toastmaster? Well, I don't know. They speak. Okay, speak about what? I don't know, she said. You should be one. So I laughed at the conversation, but I was intrigued. Did a little research, found the club, attended. This began my journey of self-improvement in communication and leadership skills. Writing, speaking, telling stories, laughing, growing, coaching, teaching, mentoring, and inspiring others to greater heights carved a new path for me. Giving freely of my skills to help and serve others brings me deep, deep joy and satisfaction. I have found my purpose to inspire others through speaking and writing, and my passion and pure love for life exuded every waking minute of going forth. Austin says on live very often that chapter changed the lives of many people, including the other authors in the book. So
I believe that.
That's a bit about being an author.
I believe that, and you explained to us that everything that you do is with passion. And on my list, I have DTM, I have Legacy Ghostwriter, Magic Moments Abound, Town Crier, Poet, Storyteller, Speaker, and you mentioned all of those now. You know that you do that with passion and out of a love for people. And did they all come at once, these gifts and attributes? Did you develop into them? Because I mean, you developed into the Toastmaster position. Where did the town crier position come in? I saw lovely posts on Facebook that I loved and liked and commented on. So please tell us, how did this all culminate into Mandy that's sitting here with us this evening?
Okay, so this is roughly an almost 2 decades journey, because when I ended up in the women's shelter, I was 100 pounds heavier than I am today. I was very, very ill. I'd been in and out of hospital, almost lost my life multiple times. And I'm still having these horrendous nosebleeds from all the abuse. And I'd lose 1.5 pints of blood every time and end up in hospital. So at the shelter, I didn't know whether I was standing, sitting, lying down. I needed to unwind, be counseled, and get into it. That's how I found Toastmasters in the shelter. I'll go through each one because I just made a couple of notes. As a ghostwriter, my chief word for being a legacy ghostwriter is the word emotion. The E stands for energy in motion. I am energy in motion. Yes. So as a legacy ghostwriter, I dedicate myself to moving through the time and space continuum to extract your legacy story and bring it to the printed page, because I believe that any story that is left inside of somebody is unfinished business until it's out on printed page for generations to come. We've spoken about Moments. I spoke about Mouse and the Princess. I have many more, but we don't have all day, so I'll limit it. Okay, so being in Toastmasters, I became a distinguished Toastmaster after 7.5 years of voluntary service. And that it's always a voluntary service. This is how we give back. And that night when I found the club in an ice storm, normally I would never drive anywhere in a Canadian ice storm. It's not worth your life. But I did. I broke my own rule. And I have no regrets, because they asked me if I would like to take part in the improv 2-minute speech side of that night. And all the members were going, no, she's a guest. Don't know. And I'm like, no, I would like to try. So I spoke on the topic of colored hot air balloons, which is festivals here in Quebec, Montreal, Quebec, I should say, in the Gatineau Hills every August. It's a festival, and the Gatineau River is covered with hundreds and hundreds of big hot air balloons. Beautiful. And I spoke for 2 minutes. Well, guess who won the Table Topics of the Night award? Yours truly. I couldn't believe it.
Good job.
So that started me working up the ranks, secretary, treasurer, until all the way up to president. And then I realized there was an outside part to being a Toastmaster. Things went on beyond the club, competitions, conferences, becoming district governor or division governor, so that you could further serve more people. So I ended up becoming an area governor. So I looked after from almost to Kingston, almost to Toronto, a little bit further north, like maybe 40, 50 clubs. And I coached them, I mentored them, helped them out in whatever, and I'd travel, right? So I did all that, got into competitions, and I've reached level 4 of 6 levels. And it is my dream to claim the world title of public speaking. So that's how I've gone all the way up in Toastmasters. And it's not an easy path. I don't want anyone here to think that getting this award was an easy path. It's one of the most difficult.
Yeah.
And it's the highest single award that any one Toastmaster can earn. When you have that under your belt, it took me 7.5 years. So you can imagine, okay? So
I can imagine the hard work and the dedication.
And commitment, yeah. All in service of helping other people.
And that's leadership, Mandy. That's leadership.
It is.
To not give up.
That's right. So I learned from others the leadership and then had my own spin on it. But they always said of me, I'm a natural speaker. I'm a natural leader. Even in the group in the women's shelter,
yes,
the counselors told me much, much later that there was always a leader in a group. I'm like, okay. They said, you were it. We knew you were going to go places. And they actually prophesied that I would. And anyway, here we are. So we've talked about being a poet and my show and the anthology. How did I become a town crier? I worked for a volunteer radio station. Yes. I started by reading the news. And then I worked my way up, became the assistant news director. So I was writing all the news.
Well done.
Thank you. And a young lady on there who contacted me one night in November on Facebook, and she said, Mandy, she was all excited. She was about 25 at the time. She said, you have to promise me something. Her name's Mel Sheen. It's a beautiful Irish name, Mel Sheen.
I love it.
She said, I said, what do you mean I have to promise you something? She said, I've just come from Christmas Magic in the park and it was awful. I said, whoa, what do you mean awful? She said, we didn't have a town crier. My predecessor had passed away 2 years before, and they left the position open. So I said, oh, yes, I can understand. I said, but I'm sure it was still beautiful. She says, okay, never mind that. She says, you have to apply. Promise me you'll apply. I said, for what? She said, the new position, they want a new town crier. I said, well, I've never even given it a thought. She said, promise me. I said, this was Friday night.
Yeah.
At almost 10 p.m. I said, well, just curious, when's the deadline? She said, Monday at noon. I said, oh, come on. I said, I can't. Promise me. I said, no, I'm not going to promise you. I said, but I'll give it some thought. Well, I no sooner got off of that call on Facebook, and it was like every bit of inspiration and creativity just flooded. And the next 48 hours, I barely ate, slept, or breathed. And I created this portfolio. I burned the paper to make it look like ancient town criers from back in the Roman days.
Wow.
I hand painted a cartoon female town crier ringing a bell, put the resume all inside. I Mac-tacked it, so it was, there's another word for Mac-tack. It's like hard plastic over paper.
Laminate?
Thank you, laminated. I couldn't think of the word. Well, I'm talking, it's on the wall in there, but it's huge. I put all the ribbons of the town's colour, which you see in my town crier's dress, which is the red, white, blue, and gold.
Stunning. It's stunning. I saw it.
Thank you. And it was just my purpose. All I wanted to do, I was so proud of this resume that I'd created. I was staggered. I've never seen anything like it. Showed my daughter, and she said, you did this? I said, yeah. Oh, my God, Mom. She said, are you going for it? I said, no, I'm not going. She said, you have to. I said, look, I said, that's two of you now beating me on the back of that.
Yes, you'll go and do it.
I will appease both of you. I said, I will take it in on Monday morning, right before work. And I worked across the road in a bank at the time from Victoria Hall, which is the seat of government. I will give it to the mayor, but that's all I want to do. She goes, right. She obviously.
Yeah, right, Mom.
I went in, I kid you not, the town clerk came to the counter, and I just said, do you have any paperwork on the application for the town crier? And all of a sudden she goes, excuse me, ladies and gentlemen, lady in the house wants to be the next town crier. I said, no, that's not what no. They're putting pins and flags. They're giving me documents. They're patting me on the back. And I had to stop them because I had to get to work. And yes. I said, is His Worship the Mayor in? Yes, he is. I said, I just need 3 minutes to present the resume, and then I have to leave. So they let me. I went in. He escorted me out, beaming from ear to ear. I walked outside. The big oak doors shut behind me, and I stood there on the high street, and I'm like, did I just do that? Yeah.
Apparently you did.
Right. Well, fast forward 3 weeks. It's now completely out of my head because I'd done what I set out to do, just give them a resume. I'm at home on a day off, phone call from the mayor. How are you? Good morning, Your Worship. I'm fine, thank you. He said, we'd like to know if you'll come in for an interview. So now it's like, what? I said, I'm sorry. He said, well, you're still interested in the town crier position, right? And I don't know where it came from. I said, oh, yes, I am interested. So 4 interviews later, I became the town crier, but he wanted to announce me at the mayor's levee on January the 1st, 2015, because that's when history was made for me. That's when I turned the tide, not just in my life, but the town's life. And everything I've done since then is unique. Nothing is ever the same. So that's town crier. We've talked about storyteller a little bit. I'm a visual storyteller. I like to use the whole stage, all body language. I'm an inspirational speaker on many platforms. Violence and sexual abuse against women is my big one. teach leadership and communication skills. Was defining the moment one of them? I forget.
That would be the next one.
Okay, so I think I've spoken on your topics. Tell me if I haven't.
I love that. Thank you very much, Mandy. I was thinking about the gender-based violence situation, and I wanted to actually add, do you know that gender-based violence is 5.1 times higher in South Africa than anywhere else in the world?
I'm really sorry to hear that. I did not know that, because we have a big focus on it here as well.
Yeah.
We even have, between Victoria Hall and one of the bigger banks, there's a street, I think it's not George Street. Well, it's Second Street. It's called Second Street. And it leads to the theatre, it leads to the ice rink, it leads to the lake. It's very historical. And what they did about 2 years ago, they painted a rainbow walkway right across the road from Victoria Hall to the bank. And we do celebrate cross-gender and everything here. I've got goosebumps. It's huge in this country, but for South Africa, gosh, that's heartbreaking. That's heartbreaking.
Our gender-based violence is more against women and children.
Wow.
Women and the children that are abused and murdered. And then you do get a handful of men that are also abused, that I also didn't know until I did a study last year.
Mm-hmm.
It was an 11-piece webinar series that I conducted on gender-based violence, and we really looked at the aspects and where these transgressors start to show these attributes. And then at the end of the season of the webinar, we realized that, it stems from their home life when they were young, not having a strong father figure, not having good leaders in their lives, because it takes a whole village to raise a child.
You've got it.
And that's why leadership is so close to me in my heart, yes.
And it takes all boats to rise on the same tide.
Amen. Let me just.
I hear you. I've got goosebumps. I hear you big time. I have spoken on behalf of men as well, because I do know men that are abused.
Yes.
And here in our own community, it's almost 30 years ago now, in Montreal, a gunman, he committed femicide, so he hated women. And he went into the Polytechnic and he murdered 20 women in cold blood before killing himself. So every year on December the 6th, which is my eldest daughter's birthday, and another reason why I'll never forget it, and I MC a big event that happens down here on the lakeshore, and these events happen right across Canada, and they're to commemorate all women and children that have lost their lives to domestic abuse, all First Nations women that have become murdered, gone missing. Their figures are even higher, because what I have to be careful how I say this, but because when immigrants started to come into Canada and started to take the land of the First Nations people, they brought diseases, they brought alcoholism. And the First Nations people weren't used to this. And over the generations, they've been severely abused by the government. Our government, just a few years ago, maybe 2 or 3, has had to massively apologize to every First Nation chief and council in this country. And they're looking for recompense for all the murdered children in schools where religion tried to force them to become like us, shall we say, and I put that in inverted commas, and I say this with the greatest respect. So a lot of their history, their culture was lost because it was beaten out of them. And the youth of today in the First Nations communities aren't as educated as, say, somebody like you and I. They don't have the same options. So they're still into alcohol and drug abuse and everything else. And it's heartbreaking. So at this monument, we commemorate all these people, and we read out the names of all the ones that have lost, including local ones. It's to keep it in people's awareness, just not on one day, on every day because
That's
it's
a
so,
wonderful practice.
yeah, it's
That's
brutal.
a wonderful practice. We did
Yeah.
something similar here in South Africa with
Yeah.
all the women and children's names that were, that had perished. And, we tried to bring awareness because I think that people don't really realize the horrid things that happen behind those doors.
Yeah.
Because many people are very afraid to speak up. And that's why leadership is so important. And we can raise these victims up as leaders. They don't have to be victims. We can give them a voice and they can break the silence and we can create a better society. So I'm very, very happy in my heart whenever I see people, rise to the occasion and take up that battle of leadership after what they've been through. It takes courage.
Amen.
It takes courage to walk out of that season. Amen. Yep. Amen.
One of the groups I belong to here is ESAV, and it's called Ending the Silence About Violence.
Fantastic.
And because of my own background, my own history, there is nothing and no one that can come to me and say, you don't understand. I lost my son. I was abused brutally for 30 years into silence. And anyway, we won't get into that, but I've been knocked unconscious, all kinds of stuff. So whenever I'm speaking, I'm reaching people's hearts and I'm helping them to understand that it doesn't matter what you are going through right now or have gone through in the past. Right now, you have a present moment where somebody who has walked in your shoes is standing before you, giving you the olive branch, saying, this is your ticket out of victimhood. Come to me. Come to me. Let me help you. And my body's just covered in because I fully empathize and understand literally everything. I faced death so many times. I'm meant to be here. The God above allowed me to survive so that I could be the leader I am to reach other people's hearts. God bless him. Thank you.
I agree. And I really feel that leadership helps people to become everything that they are meant to be. Because when they're in that state of mind of being a victim, they can't, it's not something that they can help, Mandy. It's not something that we can help.
No,
but
I know.
while they are in that state, they don't reach their full potential. And it's so beautiful to see you this evening, having gone through all of that, to even see that book of yours, the poetry book with the butterfly on it, to see this beautiful, strong, independent woman. I mean, look at the leadership you display. There you are. You become this beautiful butterfly and you are raising up leaders as you go. Yes. And that's the calling of a leader. We have to do that. We have to give what we have for the rest of the people.
Yes. And do you know what the most beautiful thing is about being a leader? And I do when I say this because it is so powerful. As leaders, we continually hone our skills and lead and grow and find new ways and new aspects and perspectives, right? Because things are changing all the time. But for me, as a leader, a powerful leader, not just Toastmasters, but in this community, my greatest joy is coaching, mentoring, and teaching somebody else to find their courage, find their passion, take a hold of it and rise. And when I watch them rise and walk out of that door empowered and strong and taking on the world, I sit back and I cry with gratitude because I'm so proud that they found that's my greatest joy in seeing other people rise.
You know, you were discussing that, and I was thinking about being an authentic leader. And I said in another session to someone that I had an interview with, I said, when you are a leader, it's never a competition.
No, it's not.
We don't compare ourselves to other leaders.
Because
No,
when you compare, you compete.
never
We
do that.
all run that race, and we all try and, make the leaders that are beside us and the ones behind us, we try to take them forward. And we reach out to the ones that we can learn from. And I love that about you, that you cheer people on, that you assist them wherever you can. And that's being a true, authentic leader. That's what it's all about.
You got
Making
it.
the world a better place.
You got it. The Son of God, when he was on the earth, he had a 3.5-year ministry. And the ancient writers said of him that if all the things that he did and accomplished in that 3.5 years were written in scrolls, the world, the planet we live on, would not be big enough to hold them all. That's how much he did in serving and helping people. And when his disciples wanted the first place in his kingdom, he taught them the humility of a true, and he washed the feet of his disciples. An authentic, true leader not only cheers their subjects on, but they remain humble and teachable, just like the ones that have gone before them.
Amen. Absolutely. Absolutely. I agree with you completely. I agree with you completely. Meticulous Moments. We will be back now with the rest of this wonderful session. Stay tuned.